How's everybody doing tonight? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone. Discussion number 50. I don't know, I'm a cornball, sorry. Got excited for a second. Tonight, my special guest is Amy and Cory from Obroa-Skai and the band Rayleigh, two crushing bands. I want to thank all my special guests for taking the time out to talk to me in all these talks, and I really appreciate it. I see you right now. Let's try this again. Hey.
Hey, can you hear us now?
That work better?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could hear myself echoing on the first time, like.
Are you hearing it now?
I'm hearing a little echo. Yeah.
You want to get headphones?
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna get headphones. That's probably why it was cutting out.
Okay.
We'll have to do a sideways profile and then do it this way. Are we sideways though?
You're sideways, yes.
How's the? Oh, that's the other way. You can see our garden.
I have a solution to this.
What's your solution?
Instagram on my phone.
Genius. Okay, we got to do some MacGyvering.
We'll make.
It's harder for two people, right? So if you listen to the live oh, here it goes.
Now, you hear me better with the headphones?
Oh, no, that doesn't work. There's a delay.
Here, we'll have to do it this way. Okay. If we drop you, we're sorry in advance. Let's see. We don't have like a fancy recording setup, so.
Yeah, my iPhone, and it's pretty good. I don't know.
Let's see if this. Anyway, happy Father's Day.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Did you guys do anything fun today?
Yeah, we went to my dad's today, and my mom's, and that's what we did. Yeah, we just visited.
So usually when I start off these talks, I ask, what got you started into listening to punk and hardcore? Like, first off, what were you listening to before punk and hardcore? And then what really grasped you to like kind of be like, all right, this is the genre that I want to listen to, that maybe I want to be in a band or something like that?
I'll let you go first because I've answered this question a few times.
Okay. God, where do I start with this? I guess, so I listened to nu metal for a long time because I kind of came of age like when that was like super popular. And my first concert was actually Slipknot in 2003. And then Unearth opened for them actually. And through Unearth, I got into like a lot of that kind of like metalcore and like the Christian metalcore, like As I Lay Dying and Zal and that. And then it was it's really funny because I was listening to that. And then my friend in grade 11 was like, oh, dude, that's not hardcore. That's garbage. Don't listen to that. Come to this show. And the show was Converge, Cursed, and Terror.
That was your second show?
No, well, that was my second show, but that was
what?
the show that I was like, oh, I get it now. I saw Cursed, and from then on, I was like, I'm hooked. Like, to this day, that remains probably like the heaviest band I've ever actually seen live.
Cursed, so loud too, live. They blew the whole system in Connecticut when I saw them, and get everything back working. Probably one of the loudest bands I've ever seen play live.
I love how the drummer's ride cymbal is just like, I don't know, like 3 feet like wide, and he hits it and just doesn't move. It's just like dong. I love it. But yeah, that's Kind of tangentially, I also got really into metal and that at the same time, but that was kind of where I got into hardcore, and by extension, actually, um, because I consider myself like a big screamo guy. Like that's my number one. It was actually funny because I was posting in like a death metal, black metal forum, and one of the people that I talked to a lot on there as his like signature was a currently listening to, and it was like Death Spell Omega, some other black metal band, and then Funeral Diner. And I was like, oh, okay, this must be like some brutal black metal. And
Funeral
I,
Diner, so metal.
I looked it up and I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Oh.
oh. And yeah, that's from then on. That was like 2006. So since then, it's been steady stream of hardcore and screamo and punk.
You were a little kid listening to, regular classic rock and roll, or were you listening to kind of pop music? Like, I know when you're real young, you kind of listen to maybe what your parents are listening to, or
Yes, actually, I have very good memories of being a small Cory and having one of those like old cassette Walkmans and listening to Aerosmith's "Get a Grip" in grade two everywhere. That was my favorite tape as I think it was like 93 or 94. So
nice.
yeah, that was. And then my parents like listened to a lot of country and Canadian country, so I listened to a lot of that till I was probably 12 or 13, and that's when I started getting on the new metal train, so to speak.
Now I know country's like big up in like Alberta and Edmonton. Like I heard that Edmonton is almost like the Texas of Canada, kind of.
Edmonton's funny because Edmonton is like what Austin is to Texas, Edmonton is to Alberta.
Oh,
Like it's,
Yeah.
I'd say between if you, like between Vancouver on the west coast and Toronto basically on the east coast, Alberta is like the only like left leaning area between those two, if that makes sense.
yep,
Like
yep.
it's kind of like the liberal hub of the Western Canadian prairies, I guess. So it very much has like an Austin feel to it,
Yeah,
where it's the river valley and everything. So that's how I always say it. Calgary is more the Dallas or the Houston, where it's an oil town and
yeah.
Very corporate.
very
Yeah.
corporate. Yeah,
Now, are there a lot of cowboys up there?
Yeah.
yeah. Well, there are in Calgary and like that kind of area because that's where they have all the
Yeah.
rodeos and stuff.
Yeah,
And, like it is very rare to actually see a cowboy hat in Edmonton.
yeah.
If you do, you're kind of like, what are you guys doing up here?
They're either doing it ironically for like a fashion statement, or it's like, huh, yeah, exactly. What are you doing up here? Yeah.
So, Amy, what were you listening to? I know I listened to your talk with Sean, um,
Mhm.
and you kind of explained it. But to anybody that hasn't heard that interview, what were you kind of listening to in the beginning, and then what really hooked you into the hard?
Yeah, I've always like been a huge like overall music fan. Like when I was a kid, I just loved listening to lots of different types of music. Like my mom was really into like my mom and dad when I was little were really into country, but she was also into like Van Halen and like Journey were like the two ones that she really liked. So I got into that when I was a teenager, not so much as a kid, because I think when I was really young, I was like, oh, this old person music and like nothing can be gained from this. I'm listening to the Spice Girls, like I am my own person. But yeah, but my cousin Cole used to bring like Marilyn Manson and like Rob Zombie tapes into our place because my parents had this really intense like for the time like studio or not studio stereo system, and yeah, it had like two CD players and two tape players, which was like huge at the time. And yeah, so he used to bring his like new metal stuff, and as a child at like probably 8, I was like, this is so sick. But then my other cousin would bring like R&B stuff, so I was always kind of like introduced to lots of different types of music from my cousins. And then once we got cable TV, we watched Much Music, which was like MTV. And I just like got into the new metal train like a lot of people did in the early 2000s. So I was really into Linkin Park. I was really into Limp Bizkit. And then in Canada, in 2004, I think, or 2003 or whatever, Alexis on Fire got really big because they, like, I don't know, like back in those days, a lot of those bands got grants to make music videos so that they could get on Much Music. So they ended up getting Much Music famous by, like, I read or listened to a interview that said that was like totally by accident. Like a lot of friends voted in to get their music video out. So they just like got on there by accident. Anyways, a lot of people in Canada like me got into heavier music through that band. Yeah, so that started my younger years. And in terms of hardcore, like I kind of dropped out of like heavy music for a really long time in the mid 2010s because I was listening to more like indie rock and like synth pop and a lot of like electronic stuff. So I kind of just took a break from heavy music, and then I got into like or broke out of a relationship that was really toxic. And then one day I was really sick from work, and I was like, I haven't listened to hardcore. I've listened to a lot of like 77 punk. I've listened to a lot of post-hardcore stuff. I've never actually like figured out what hardcore is. And I just like Googled top 10 hardcore bands, and like Black Flag and Minor Threat came up, and like Bad Brains and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is sick. So that's how I kind of got into the hardcore, got into hardcore. And then I met Cory, and then got into all the stuff that he was into. So yeah.
My back, kind of a little similar. When I was real young, my mom was kind of, she went to talk and stuff like that. So she was listening to all that kind of like old classic kind of drug influenced, hippie rock.
Yeah.
So when I was young, I kind of was like, I hate this stuff. I'm going to listen to disco. And when I was real little, and I loved disco, and I couldn't stand classic rock for the longest time. And then, when I got to be a teenager, I kind of started listening to, Iron Maiden, Ozzy, stuff like that, Judas Priest, Scorpions. And then that just kind of went into thrash metal. And then thrash metal got me into hardcore. And then from then on, just I went to shows. I've been going to shows since 1983, if you can believe that. No, I'm old. I'm real old.
We were listening to your talk with Chris Callahan, and you guys were talking about shows you went to, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I went to my first show in 2003.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember you saying like one of your first like shows was like a sick thrash metal lineup or something like that, like kind of like a DIY show. That was like your first kind of like.
My actual show was SSYS and the Angry Channel in Boston. I was 11 years old.
That's sick.
Was scared because they had it was all 8 matinees, and my friend was like, oh, do you want to go to a punk show? And like I was brought up with just my mom. I only had one parent growing up, so it wasn't it was like an estranged relationship between me and her. So it was not neglect per se, but like I could do pretty much whatever I wanted to do. So I ended up going to the show with this one of my cousin's friends that was 16 that had his license, and I was totally scared because I had long hair and everybody had short hair back then, like early 80s. So I was like deathly afraid, but I felt the energy and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, but then I was so scared that I only went to thrash metal shows after that. So I saw like, Testament, Creator, like
That's dope.
Flotsam and Jetsam, all those kind of bands. And then in '87, I started going back to hardcore shows when I thought I was like could handle myself and not get beat up. So,
Which was a legit fear, I feel like, back in those days in hardcore shows. It always sounds so brutal, like anytime you hear about those times.
Early '80s, it wasn't too bad because with little kids like that I was then, the older kids didn't really like pick on you or didn't beat you. They'd actually like bring you into the pit and be like, oh, hit this guy right there. And then that guy And then they'd be like, touch him and you're dead. You know, it was kind of that kind of attitude.
Very
Sounds dope.
wholesome.
It was weird. And then as soon as you like look old enough, though, that's when you kind of have to watch yourself. Boston,
Mm.
I always went to Boston, so it was very like the late 80s, real late 80s going into the 90s. It started getting really, really violent, and people started getting jumped and beat up and like all kinds of stuff like that. So like 80s going into 90s, I kind of shifted my scene to New Hampshire, and it was still a little violent, but it wasn't as crazy as Boston, because Boston was really, really rough back in the day, and still is kind of, you know what I mean? There's a lot of tough guy bands, but the Boston scene itself has put out so many great bands. I mean, Orchid's from Western Mass, but they played in that area all the time. Ampere. I mean, there's been so many great bands from, you know, Massachusetts that have come out. So it's just very weird, you know. Like Converging Cave-In was huge in the 90s here. And yeah, like I said, it goes very violent, then it calms down, and then it you know, it gets violent again. But I kind of skewed away from the moshcore tough guy stuff. When I saw Seisha for the first time, it changed my mind completely. I didn't even know who it was. Like,
Sorry, our dog is acting up, and I'm actually gonna.
I don't
She is a sweetheart, but she has a very mean bark.
believe. Yeah, I dog.
Let's see if I can. Oh, I don't think so. Oh no, my stand. Okay. Okay, I'll get it. Ah. See, we need a phone stand.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That's cool.
Mine's kind of.
Let's see if that will work better. No, that's probably going to be worse. Maybe. Maybe. We're using like 2 pieces of folded up paper to try to like prop it up between, because I have like a bottom headphone jack here. Let it go. See if it works. No. Oh no. Maybe we can like do a selfie thing.
Yeah.
Okay. We're holding it. You wanna grab it from the side? Perfect. This will be better.
That works for me. So, Cory, I started getting into bands.
Sorry.
Sorry, pets. Yeah, sorry.
Get into bands. You know, were you in any? What was your first band that you were in? I know you were in. Is it Obroa-Skai?
Yeah, Kurojikai. Yeah. So I was in, God, I guess like the first bands I was in was when I was like 16, and like you don't even bother mentioning them because it's like you jam for a few times and never play a show, and then like you wanted to play like Metallica where I wanted to play like Testament kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The first band that ever released anything that I was in was a D-beat band called Dysplasia. And that was Mike and Darrell from Maria and Derek from this metal band called Big Rhyme Exenius. And the 4 of us played D-beat, and then we had another guitarist come in later who played in a bunch of punk bands here named Nick. And that was just like a fun thing that we played a few shows around here, played a few shows in Calgary, released 2 just demo EPs. And then I joined a power violence band called Detroit. And I was the vocalist in that. And we released a full length, and then we did a West Coast tour where we went down to Austin and actually played like a day show in the last Chaos and Chaos in 2013. And then without going into too much detail, that tour was a train wreck, and I ended up flying back home to Edmonton from Phoenix, and they just drove up the rest of the way and played the rest of the tour without a vocalist. But I kind of Kurojikai was what I started like right after that with Mike, Paul, and Jarrell from Aria, and it was kind of supposed to be the Detroit revenge band almost, if you will, where it was just kind of like, oh, you kicked me out. Well, I'm gonna start a power violence band that's better. And it was very tongue in cheek. Like our first or second show, our first show was the person who was the drummer in Detroit put on a fest and was like, oh, come play. And I was like, oh, this is funny. And then our second show was like the guitarist in Detroit was like, oh, I put on this sweet show. You guys should play. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of backfiring
so weird.
on me. But yeah, it's very tongue in cheek now. Like it's so long in the past. There's no resentment or anything now and everything. And it's very fun. To this day, I think the Kurojikai 7-inch now was a tape is probably like the only thing I think I've ever released musically that I've been like 100% happy with, which I mean it's like 10 minutes long. It's
Yeah.
short and sweet. So,
So what, speaking of that, what kind of got you into the noise aspect? Was that like you or all of you guys in that band that kind of infiltrated the noise into the power violence? I know sometimes hand in hand, but what kind of got you into that to like, because Obroa-Skai has a bunch of noise aspects as well. So
it's actually really funny because the guitarist of Kurojikai and Maria, Mike, and I were roommates, and we went and saw Full of Hell play here in 2013, and like they're like now they're awesome. They're a great band. I like love them to death. But back then it was just like he had like 4 pedals in a loop, and he didn't hook it into the PA or anything. So it was just like he had a little PA speaker he brought on stage, and these 4 pedals in a loop. And it was like the songs were great, but whenever he did noise stuff, it was just like this little like just very underwhelming. And it was like we saw that and we're like, we could do this better.
yeah,
And that was kind of what started that. And then at the time, I was really starting to get into noise at the time, like Pharmacon, really into. I saw Merzbow around the same time, and it was just I got really into just like abrasive music because the power violence scene at the time around here was like, oh, power violence is kind of like anti-music. The big thing was the musical note logo with the cross out and everything. It's like, oh yeah, and I was like, no, like harsh noise. That's like actual anti-music. Like no rhythm, no nothing. Just as off-putting and abrasive as possible.
yeah.
So yeah, I convinced everyone else in Kurojikai to be like, oh yeah, like well it was like Mike and I's band, and then we kind of recruited Paul and Darrell into it just to play drums and guitar for us, really. So
Now, is all the songs on the Bandcamp everything that you guys recorded, or did you have more than that? That is that.
We recorded, or we wrote all those songs, played 4 shows with that same set, and then we recorded, and in the process of recording, Jarrell and Paul both quit, and then that was kind of it. Again, it was really funny because it was like they were upset that we were dragging all this gear to go to shows to play for 10 minutes. Like we were playing it like full stacks.
Which fair in the winter in Edmonton.
Yeah, it was silly. In retrospect, it was completely silly. I always said I wanted to like get back together because we're all still friends and we all still play that style of music. I think the only reason we wouldn't do it again now is because Mike moved to Montreal. And we wouldn't do that band again without Mike. But it's like I always say I want to do it again and get us all back together and do it because, like, again, I also miss just doing vocals in a band. And we just write in the complete opposite vein, write one like 15-minute long song just to we doubled our output, but one more song.
Now was Rayleigh in that same time frame that band was going on?
Yes, so I started Rayleigh. Originally, it was me, Paul, who ended up joining Maria around the same time. And the drummer in Detroit and I were roommates, so he played drums on it. And we were a three-piece until one day I just came home from work and Mike was like in the basement jamming with the drummer because he was also a roommate and was like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to join the band." It was like, "Oh, okay, sweet."
He invited himself?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's like Mike to a T.
It was literally,
I'm joining your band.
It was literally like in the summer, I had offhandedly, we were talking about it and I had offhandedly mentioned like, "Oh, I'm looking for a guitarist in the band," and he's like, "Oh, well, if you don't find anybody, I'll join." And it was like 4 months later, Paul had joined, and he was just like, "Oh, hey, well, you said, I could join your band, so I could sing your band."
I'm here.
It sounds off-putting, but at the time it was like very endearing. Like, yeah, sure. No, you're in the band.
It's a good Mike Wagner move,
It's
in the best possible way. Yeah.
Actually, at the time, like I really wanted to do like kind of like a One-Eyed God Prophecy meets like Republic of Dreams type of thing. So that was kind of the vibe we were going for at that point. And that was like a lot of the songs that we were writing and didn't get recorded sounded like. And then because it was the same drummer as my Power Rounds band, when we got back from that tour, obviously he was like, "Okay, I don't want to be in Rayleigh anymore, but I don't want to be in a band with you anymore." So then we broke up temporarily, and then it was probably about a year later, David Norman actually put our demo tape out, like finally. That's Zegama Beach Records for anybody who doesn't know.
That's
and
that.
then, sorry.
That's the 6-song self-title. Is that what it was?
Yeah. And I always say that was kind of like the thing that made me continue playing music because that actually got like relatively good reception. And I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe we should actually like find another drummer and actually do this again." So then we found Jordan, who was drumming in some bands here. He was actually drumming in a bunch of like American football-esque kind of the Midwest emo kind of stuff. And then he played drums in a Dangers cover set for Halloween.
Really?
And I was like, "Oh, you could drum!
You're sick."
Please come join our band." Love him to death. But yeah, so then we were a 4-piece like that, and we recorded the full length, and that was a bit of a nightmare of a process because I was actually working out of town at the time. I was working in Winnipeg, and it was like I'd come home and I'd have like 3 days off before I had to leave again for like 2 to 3 weeks, and it was like I kind of want to go record in my 3 days off. I just want to like hang out. I just started dating Amy at the time. It was like, "Oh, I want to go hang out with my partner and not like go sit in a sweaty basement for a whole day trying to record things." So it just got like it fell by the wayside for a while, and then Paul, who was doing vocals, ended up getting super sick one summer, and that was when I was like, "Oh, well, why don't we ask Amy to join the band as vocalist?" And yeah,
That's how I became the vocalist.
Paul got really sick.
Now,
Poor
Amy,
Paul.
did you always want to be like the front man in a band or front woman? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I think maybe I talked about this like with Sean, but I feel like when I was a kid growing up, like I'd listen to Linkin Park or like Alexis on Fire and I'd like blast it and pretend I was like performing. So I always wanted to do it, but I always like, because there wasn't many like popular women in like that sort of like pop post-hardcore like emo sort of scene that was going on in like 20 from like the late 2000s, that I was like, well, like women can't scream, so, and I certainly can't, so like why would I do it, kind of thing. So I just assumed I couldn't do it. And then but yeah, no, and then later, like when I met Cory, and then on top of that, there was like a fest here that some women and queer folks put on in Edmonton called Not Enough Fest, and it was just all about getting women, non-binary folks to kind of start bands with each other, like kind of no men in those bands, just like unless they wanted to help like teach or like donate gear. That was kind of the kind of vibe of the fest. So after going to that festival, I didn't participate in it because like I was too nervous. I didn't think I was cool enough. Um, I was like, oh, I could totally do vocals in a band, and I actually really want to do vocals in a band. And at that time, like hardcore was kind of like in the outs a little bit in Edmonton. Like a lot of people, like a lot of bands broke up at the same time. We lost like a really important venue in our city that like a lot of places, like a lot of bands played at. I think Deviate was like kind of flip-flopping a
Yeah,
lot
I was
too.
kind of out.
So we lost a lot of venues. So there was like the scene kind of broke off a lot, and like there was always like the party punk scene, but like that wasn't what I was really into. So I really wanted to start a hardcore band, but there was like nobody around. So at one point, Cory just took me to their jam space and was like, here, like scream along to your favorite songs and let's see like what you sound like. And then like I screamed along to like Impure, and he was like, you should be in a band.
I was like, oh, you've been hiding this all along.
Yeah, how dare you keep this from me? So yeah, but yeah, I love fronting. Like fronting is so fun. I miss it a lot. I like to jump around and run around and hop on things and have fun, but like in a way that's not planned. Like I just kind of like I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Like Cory would, after a show, will always be like, "You smacked into me like 6 times," and I'm like, "Oh, I did. I'm sorry.
Hell, get clean like this.
I'm sorry. I can't control my body. I'm just having fun, or I'm feeling the music." So yeah, but no, I really enjoy fronting. It's fun.
I talked to Megan from Foxtails, and she sometimes, she wouldn't play an instrument, and she would do the same thing.
Oh yeah.
And she said her performance is like totally different because she can do whatever she wants. It's more of a performance for her that she really enjoys. And sometimes they get a fill in so she can just
Yeah.
do the vocals, which I think is great. And
Yeah, when sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say when we saw them at
New Friends.
New Friends, I want to say not enough. New Friends Fest, same thing. Like Tamir filled in on bass, and yeah, they just ran around the stage the whole time.
Such a good performer. Too.
Yeah, such a great range.
Great range, great performer. Probably one of the better vocalists, I think, in the genre for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always say, like, there's been a, resurgence of new, like, really crushing bands lately. In my view, hardcore and screamo kind of had a little gap where there wasn't much going on. But I feel like the last maybe 5 to 6 years, like there's so many bands popping up that are so incredible and so talented. And you're seeing a lot of females in these bands too, which I think is amazing. Like I like almost any band that I listen to now and I hear it, like I'm like, oh my God, this band is incredible. And then it's all girls, or most of the band is girls, and I'm like, I love that. I think it's so great that things are starting to. For a while, it was male dominated for so long, and that you could see like maybe one female play bass, but then now I feel like it's more integrated, and like it's just like I don't know, like it's just a resurgence, I think, and it's like really refreshing to see it now, because like I said, back in the day, you didn't really see that too often. There was, Jess from 1905, KJ from Maracate, and Welcome to Plague Year, but it was like few and far between. And now I feel like today, I feel like more females are getting into this kind of music, and it's just like a commonplace now, which I love.
Yeah, I definitely see that on a kind of a micro level here, because when I started really getting into the scene in like the mid to late 2000s, it was all just a bunch of white dudes. Like it was white dude hardcore.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it still leans that way, but it's definitely
it's dominant.
it's still dominant. Especially in like if you kind of look at like the This Is Hardcore kind of scene, it's very still like dominant, but it's still like there's a lot of people of color now in it. There's a lot of like female women in it, and there's a lot of like trans artists too, I've noticed, which is great. Like it's really awesome to see the kind of the cultural shift, if you will.
Yeah.
No, I really noticed that like the modern, whatever you'd want to call it, fourth wave, third wave of screamo, whatever wave of screamo we're on now.
No wave.
No wave screamo. Is like very very inclusive and
very delightfully queer.
Very delightfully queer.
Love it.
That's the best way to put it.
We love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you guys first started playing, was it, especially Amy, were you scared when you first got out there and played live and performed? Were you, the first time I performed on a crowd, I was kind of scared. I kind of did turn my back type of thing.
I mean, I'm still scared when I play shows. I'm still nervous, especially with Obroa-Skai now, like the last 2 years, because I play guitar in it, and I've never played guitar before this band. So I'm back to just being nervous and like, oh, don't watch my fingers on the fretboard because you'll see me screw up.
My first show, I wasn't nervous to perform. I always felt pretty natural performing. I was like a little bit more stiff when I started. But when I did my first show, because I found out I was filling in for Rayleigh as like with 3 days like before 3 shows within a week. Yeah. So we were
very short notice.
Yeah, we played a house show, and then we played a show at like this venue, and then like 4 days later we played a show at like with what was Dowsing? Yeah, we played with Dowsing. Yeah. And I shot my voice like before that first show, and I just barely could talk. And I remember talking to Darrell, who's drummer in Obroa-Skai, and he was like, "Oh, are you nervous?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine." Well, you don't have to play. I'm like, "I can play it. It's fine." Yeah. So, and then yeah, my voice was bad for a while. Yeah.
You had bad laryngitis for this.
I had really bad laryngitis. Yeah, I learned warm up. If I have to say anything, if I have to give anybody advice, is to warm up. But yeah, so that I was nervous about. But like once I started getting better at it, I never felt nervous, I guess. The only thing that made me nervous was like, I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, as a front person, I've never felt nervous being fronting. I'm more nervous about playing bass, because same thing, because we started learning those instruments at the same time, and we weren't very good when we started. So that's what I was nervous about. But luckily our scene, like, or the people that I played with, I wouldn't say the scene in general, but our friends that come to our shows and stuff are really lovely. And like after every show was like, "Wow, you've improved so much." I'm like, "Thank you." So it makes it less nerve-wracking.
Yeah. That is one thing I'll say, like, because of our our proximity being as far north as we are, Edmonton's scene is like really tight knit. Like everybody knows everybody at shows. If somebody's ever been to a show before, they send out like a sore thumb, not to be like intimidating, but it's like, oh, it's somebody new who's never been at a show before.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone's very supportive.
Yeah, if there's a new band, that band plays like every month for like a year, like twice a month.
Yeah, like it's very welcoming and warm. So that nervousness kind of goes away because you're just kind of like, oh, it's just like I'm jamming with my friends. Playing new friends, where you're kind of like you're actually out there playing with like
On a tall stage.
on a tall stage with fans who you like look up to and are from like all across like the US and stuff, and it's not your friends and everything. It was kind of more like,
It's your new
oh, new friends.
friends.
Like that was pretty nerve-wracking. So
Now, Rayleigh had kind of, a big gap between releases. Why was that? Like, was there a year gap, and then like 20 last thing?
David's here. Sorry.
Is the band done now, or is there still, things?
yeah, no, we're done now. Mike ended up, our guitarist moved to Montreal, and again, because of the tight knitness of Edmonton scene, like you can make a chart and it's like from Maria to Rayleigh to Obroa-Skai to Obroa-Skai, it's like 3/4 of the bands are the same. Like Darrell was drums for pretty much all of them. Mike and Paul played guitars in pretty much all of them. I played bass in half of them. So when Mike moved to Montreal, it was kind of like Rayleigh played a couple of shows as a 4-piece after that. And it was kind of like, at this point, it's kind of, it wasn't the same. And
Yeah.
at the time, we had just started Obroa-Skai, and that was kind of more of a, how do I say this? It was more of a fresh start and a fresh direction we could kind of go. So that kind of took up a lot more of our time, and then it was kind of like, okay, well, at this point, we should probably just pull the plug. Yeah, as for the gap in releases, that was just
Recording.
we
Yeah.
recorded the demo. Minnie broke up, got back together. I had to leave for like a year to go to work. Came back, finally finished recording. Rushed that last release before Mike left. And again, like David released both the demo and the last EP, and bless his soul for doing that.
Thanks, David.
But yeah, it was just it was just like life kind of took its toll on like my life was pretty weird at that time because again I was like working out of town a lot. I was actually, when Marius started, I was the original vocalist of it. We never ended up.
You were the original vocalist? I knew you were like an original bassist, but I didn't know you were the vocalist.
No, I was a vocalist.
Interesting.
And we hadn't played any shows or anything, but it was like we were jamming for like a few months. And then I ended up, again, having to go out of town for work. And it was like, at that point, I had to be like, oh, I got to take a step back. And they got Cory, and it worked out fantastic for them.
She was great. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like just my work situation in like the first half of the 2000s just kind of, as far as bands go, it had to be as like a back burner thing.
Yeah. Now, what made you decide to start Obroa-Skai? And first off, I know it's a Star Wars named band.
Oh.
What made you name the band?
I mean, Obroa-Skai was kind of something I thought was. I read it in the books because I loved those books as a kid, and I even as like when I was like 13, I was like, I'm gonna lock that away because that's a nice sounding name. I'm gonna remember that. I've always wanted to name a band that going forward. And yeah, it was kind of just. I mean, a big part of the name too was we were talking with this recently with somebody. I can't remember who. I think it was like our D&D group. And we were just talking about like bands with the same name and like bands who like new bands that start out that have the same name as another band. And I'm like, oh, you guys didn't do like a quick Google search before you like named a band this? Oh yeah, there's a new band starting up in 2021 that's Minor Threat. Like,
I feel like that's off the table, but
But yeah, it was kind of also like, okay, well, nobody's going to take this name, and nobody's going to use this. Like, nobody's going to take this name in the future, and nobody.
Okay, so remember when we Google and we were the first ones that came out of the Google search?
Yes.
We're no longer, there's a podcast called
Uh,
Obroa-Skai Library. And I was like, no!
there you go.
Yeah. That band, but he first started asking, how did Obroa-Skai start?
Yes.
And then you got into your Star Wars lore.
I was about to say that. But yeah, no, that started, Obroa-Skai started because Darrell at the time actually had kind of dropped into the scene for a bunch of like other really
Got into poetry.
Yeah, got into poetry, but he dropped into music for a while. And then his life took a bit of a turn, and it was kind of like, hey, you know, like I haven't played in a band for like 2 years. I haven't played in a screamo band for like 4 years. Do you guys just want to like start a band? And it was like, you can play guitar, Amy can play bass. It'll be great. And
both of us were like, we don't know how to play.
Yeah, I was like, I don't play guitar. I don't own a guitar. I have a bass guitar. Amy's never played an instrument. So. And he was like, oh, it's fine. Like, because at the time we had started just like going over there and like hanging out and watching movies every like Friday night.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh God, you guys are here anyway. Just start a band. Let's play screamo, script. So yeah, we just started jamming and learning and struggling to learn instruments at the same time, which was just fun. And then yeah.
And then at one point he was like, I'm booking us a show that will motivate us to actually get good. And we're like, okay.
Yeah.
He booked a show, and then that was kind of
it was like we had 2 songs written and we weren't very good at doing vocals and playing at the same time yet.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, I booked a show for like 3 weeks from now.
Yeah. He's like, it will be a good motivator. And we're like, okay. Yeah. And it was actually.
Yeah, it worked out great.
Yeah. There's a method to the madness. Yeah.
But I do find it funny because it seems like, because it was supposed to be just like a fun jam band on Friday nights, and now it's like, oh, we've
our
actually,
main thing. Yeah.
We've done more with Obroa-Skai that in like a year than I did with Rayleigh in like 4.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And now, are you guys working on full length now, or what are you guys working on new music?
Well, we were working on a full length before the pandemic started.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic started, and we like, okay, we kind of took a break and stepped back. And then, like, our restrictions here, I don't know how your restrictions were where you are, but here they got pretty intense at one point. It was like, hey, we can't jam because we jam at Darrell's house, and if we go visit Darrell, we get like a $5,000 fine if they catch us. So it was kind of like, and plus the pandemic. At one point, Alberta was like the worst cases per capita in North America. So, we were like, okay, well, let's play it safe. So we've jammed maybe, like we just started jamming again 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And like, yeah, since the pandemic started, we've all been in the same room together maybe 10 times.
Yeah. I think it's like to the benefit though, like because we were writing the full length before the pandemic started, and it was kind of like on the momentum of New Friends, because after that we were like really inspired, and then it was actually, I mean, I'm not going to say that it was great, but it was kind of nice to take a step back for a bit and to like kind of reevaluate, like, okay, what do we want this full length to sound like? And then we recruited a new guitarist who's like amazing and such a good fit, and like he's written like 2 like banger songs that I'm like, these are my favorite songs on this record that's coming up. So yeah, no, so it's been a slow process for sure during the pandemic, but like, yeah, no, the full length will be cool. I'm excited.
We're shooting to have it out before the end of the year, so fingers crossed.
Or
knock on wood.
It will be, if it's not, then it will be done well in 2022. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
It'll be done right. It won't be done quick.
Yeah.
Now, with the time off, were the creative juice flowing just because you had so much time to were you kind of
we had like a lot of songs in the bank before So like we had tons of stuff after New Friends. We were really like, yeah, at that time. But now it's getting better.
It's good now. Like now we're all like really motivated and
Mm.
really feeling it. But like at the midpoint of the pandemic, it was very much that like that meme of like, oh, I'm gonna get so good at guitar over the next like little while during the pandemic, and it was like 4 months in, I'm like, I picked up my guitar once and played for like 20 minutes. Like it was just hard. Like it's really hard to get motivated, I find, during like all of this.
Yeah.
So I'm personally very excited to get back into it.
I got better at bass though.
Amy got better at bass. Amy took it seriously. I didn't.
Do you think that the sound has changed at all from like what you're working on, from what you guys put out? I know what was the 4-band split that Middleman put out, that was the last 2 songs you guys did, correct?
Yes. And yeah, like that was really raw and very like frantic, I find. And I'd say that the franticness is still there. It's a lot more refined now because again, like we are much better at our instruments now than we were when we recorded that. I'd only been playing guitar for like a year when we did that. So yeah, it's the sound is still there. It's, how do I say this? Now that we have Chris, our new guitarist, it's a lot more like refined and there's a lot more like leads and stuff.
Mm.
But it's still going to be noisy.
It's gonna be noisier.
Very, very noisy.
Noisier.
We're working on like incorporating the noise, not so much as just like kind of a between song interlude, and more it's actually like
Integrated.
It's in the songs.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, are you talking like maybe the middle portion, or I know on the 2 songs the last 2 songs, I think like is it the end of the beginning is pretty much all noise, and then it's just like a few minutes of screaming and chaoticness, but most of that song is noise, correct? In that first song on that.
Yeah, we wrote that purposefully to be like that. Yeah.
No, yeah, that was an interesting one because it was like we wrote the second song, and then the noise part of it was kind of like, okay, well, we're gonna have like a 5-minute long noise jam at the start of this. Like, let's go for it. I think it worked out really great there. But no, it's definitely gonna be a lot more like there will be noise integrated into screamo parts on this. Like, there will be screamo riffs over top of harsh noise.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I'm going for it.
Yeah, we're trying to be ambitious.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out.
Now,
I have high hopes.
Now, do you miss playing the noodly parts like Rayleigh was doing? Do you miss any of that noodly parts? That kind of, there wasn't many, but there was a few noodly parts in that. Do you miss that? Because
Oh, I miss the riff salad sometimes.
Sometimes. I like Obroa-Skai because it seems much more like stripped down and to the point.
Mm.
I feel like that last Rayleigh EP we released, there were definitely like parts where it was just like, here's a noodly riff, here's a noodly riff, here's another noodly riff. Oh, you like noodly riffs? Here's another one. And it just got very over the top. And Paul and Mike are both amazing guitarists. Like, Mike has been playing guitar since he was like 11. So it's like I couldn't hope to be nearly as noodly as they are. So
Yeah, I like the vocal style in that band was always really difficult to perform. So I don't miss my voice hurting. But I do miss like some of like I miss some of the noodly parts for sure. Yeah, there's certain songs that I still sing in my head that I'm like, oh, I miss like jumping at this point of the song and like doing something fun. So yeah.
Last Word was that last EP that was put out, correct? See, I apologize because I never heard that band till like maybe a month ago.
Don't apologize for that.
we played one show outside of Alberta or two shows outside of Alberta. So
What was
it's
the
like
second one?
Abbotsford. We played Vancouver and we played
Oh,
Abbotsford.
that doesn't
Yeah,
count.
exactly. Like, we played Vancouver once, and we played a suburb of Vancouver once. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a popular band. So
It was popular in Edmonton.
it was
A lot of
popular
people
here,
liked it
but
here. Yeah. Yeah, it was a hard band because it's like, yeah, everyone was busy. Like I was in school, Paul was in law school. Mike was kind of like started doing more of his like synth stuff. He got really obsessed and is still doing it and is fantastic at like synth stuff. So like that band was kind of like to go kind of back into like what we were chatting about why like the release schedule was like so wide. It's just like everyone was kind of getting into different things at that time, and then I think there was a lot of burnout, especially from Mike and Paul who came from Maria, and there was like they played a lot of shows, and I think they were just burnt out from the genre.
yeah.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like after a bunch of tours and trying to release their album.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no. I like playing the loud stuff. I love heavy industrial music. So this band is more up my alley than Rayleigh was. Rayleigh was a great first band to learn from such great musicians. Like, but like this band is like super up my alley. Like it's so fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Obroa-Skai was the first thing I heard from you guys, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And you don't like from on the East Coast, in New England. I don't really hear a lot of bands, especially from Edmonton. I know you're friends with Ron, who does Gene Scene Creamers, and he kind of turns me on to new bands too that I kind of like fall under the radar for me. And I listened to that podcast where you had the Body record that you picked, which was really awesome. And then I listened to that, and I sent you that video that I had.
Yeah.
They had the knapsacks over there.
Yeah.
And one of the guys was playing a plastic bucket on the side of
Yeah.
Wow.
I showed it to Cory and he was like, "Oh, that's like, what did you call it? Oh, you didn't say ancient. You're like, oh, that's like primordial body or something
Yeah.
funny." And
can't
I was
remember what
like,
said, but
I was like, yeah, they were like a hardcore band. Like that's weird to hear, yeah.
I
Or
mean,
more hardcore, I guess, compared to what they are now, for sure. But
yeah, them being from Providence, I saw them a handful of times. It was really like Providence bands are so great and they're so different. I mean, you get the Body, then you get Arab on Radar and Daughters, and I mean, it just there's so it's very different, but the same scene almost. They all play together. Providence is really really fun. I loved going down there and seeing shows, and it's just a good scene down there.
that's cool. It's kind of how I feel about Edmonton. Like it's a really, and like, in terms of like the circles we kind of hang out in, because you can get really like insular and just hang out in one scene, but we have so many different cool music scenes. Like in Edmonton, like our ambient, like electronic stuff is really interesting and avant-garde and stuff. And yeah,
yeah, again, the thing about like Edmonton is because it's so like isolated, it creates this weird vacuum where like because we don't get touring bands ever. I can't stress this enough. Ever. When bands tour Canada, it is Vancouver, Toronto, and Vancouver is a 13-hour drive from where we live.
Really, wow.
Yep.
And if there is a band doing like a cross Canada tour, they'll hit like Vancouver and then hit like Calgary, which is 3 hours south of us.
Yeah.
Because it's just a better straight shot.
Yeah.
Highway 1, baby.
Yeah. Like again, I saw Daughters in 2005 in like a pretty like 1,000-person venue. There were 15 people there. Like, yeah. Like we have like a really weird relationship with music here. But because it creates that like very vacuum-esque area, it's like all the bands play with each other. Like Rayleigh and Obroa-Skai have played with like indie rock bands, and we've played with like ambient artists, and
We played with all sorts of
Yeah.
bands. We played with a lot of grindcore, which is so fun. It's my favorite.
playing grimy grindcore houses.
The best.
Great times.
Well, yeah. Well, I remember when Mike told me he was like, the best thing about Edmonton is that you could start whatever kind of band you wanted and you could get a show and you could be on a bill and then you could basically just like get good at that band in Edmonton. Like it's an easy city to start bands because there's like a lot of turnover. Like a new band will start and then it will break up because it's like they get like bummed that they only play Edmonton. Or like, life happens. Like it's a working class city too, right? Like a lot of people are really busy. They're away for work a lot out of town. So it's a really busy city. In that sense, not a good, like, yeah, a lot of working class people playing in bands or like public workers who had to get up in their morning. So you can't really play a really late show. So it's like one of those cities that like there's a lot of turnaround, but like you could basically start whatever band you wanted and people would be stoked on it.
Now, have you guys ever been to New England?
No, I have not.
I've never been east of Montreal, and I haven't been south of Montreal. I have never been to East US. I've only been West Coast,
That's
and then to Austin, Texas, and
yeah.
then up through the Midwest.
So it's a bit of a lie. I have been to Boston. I was 2, so I don't remember it. But no, like the furthest east I've been in the States, like as an adult, would be like Chicago.
Yeah, which is too bad. We have a lot of East Coasters asking us to come tour, and I'm like, well, that's cool. I would love to. It's so far away. Yeah.
Yeah, the East Coast, everything's fairly close. It's not a crazy drive. So like Philly to like, Philly to New York to Providence to Boston. Sometimes Vermont actually goes. So it's kind of like within I don't know, I would say like 6-7 hour drive, you could have, 12 shows.
Well, isn't that nice? Our closest city is Calgary, which is 3 hours away. And then the second closest is Saskatoon, which is 8.
Yeah, and even then, Saskatoon there's not a lot there.
Yeah.
Like I said, in terms of like major cities in Canada that get like big shows, it's a 12 to 13 hour drive to Vancouver, or it's a 4-day drive to Toronto.
Yeah. At one point, because we were doing a collab set, we were planning to do a collab set with Crowning at ZBR Fest, and one of them was like, "Oh, we can just play a show in Edmonton the night before ZBR. Like, how far is it to drive?" And I was like, "It's like 12, 13, 14 hours." Yeah. And they're like, "Oh, never mind. Sorry, we'll meet you in Vancouver." Yeah.
It's like asking why like Alaska doesn't have a thriving hardcore scene.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. But Calgary has a really thriving hardcore scene.
Yeah, like Calgary's hardcore scene is great. They've always had like a great scene. They have a big fest they do there every year called the Wild Rose. I think this year it was last year it was supposed to be like the headliners were like Madball and Knocked Loose, and they got canceled because of COVID. But that's also it's put on partially by Spencer, who runs Scoped Exposure, and he's kind of like a videographer.
Oh yeah.
Very very akin to like Hate 5-6. So it's
the Western Canadian hardcore Hate 5-6.
Yeah. So if it's like if you ever want to see basically every hardcore band that is in Edmonton and Calgary, just go look at the Scoped Exposure YouTube page because he videotapes every show.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has done so much for like our scene here that I cannot stress enough. Just in terms of like getting exposure out there.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Talking about Screamo, I know me and Ron always talk about it because we're a little older, and Screamo really wasn't a word that we used just because I didn't even know what it was, honestly. I saw, the classic Screamo bands and You and I and, Seisha and Portrait and, all those kind of bands. And it was just hardcore to us. And then kind of when those bands like weren't bands, all of a sudden the word Screamo came into it. And nowadays, like you meet somebody on the street and they're like, "Oh, I like Screamo," and then you're like, "Oh, what bands do you like?" And they're like, "Well, I like Five Finger Death Punch and I like Alex."
Oh.
And you're like, no, I'm talking like yeah,
the good shit.
So I always ask, what like, what does screamo mean to you? And was it always screamo and not hardcore? 'Cause
Ooh,
it's just
that's a good question.
hardcore.
I mean, my response to it now is because like the way I look at it is back when those like first screamo bands really started, because there wasn't a lot of them. It was kind of like that's hardcore, like that's punk. They're just a different style of punk. Like, and now it's like you listen to like One Eyed God Prophecy, and they sound completely different than God, say, God, I'm drawing a blank now. But something like Respire.
Mm.
Like they don't sound similar, right? So I feel like because like punk and hardcore is just so encompassing, because there's so many bands now and there's so many diverse bands doing different things and different sounds, you almost need that umbrella to kind of lump in bands into specific subgenres almost. Like in terms of what screamo is, like I don't know how you would say it, like
Screamy emo.
screamy emo, yeah. It's hardcore with noodly parts almost, or hardcore with I always say it's hardcore where the prominent emotion is not necessarily anger, but more kind of melancholy, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always hear emo violence too considered equal to screamo. Is that thrown around a lot with like in the scene there? Do you hear a lot of emo violence like
In Edmonton?
In Edmonton,
just itself? Like I hear it
not really. Like
It depends on like, so there's certain people who get very pedantic
yes,
and very like very.
there is only one emo violence fan, and it's Inhumanity.
That's fine. Oh, yours is there. Yeah, people who get really, and I think like, I mean, fair. Like, it's just one of those. Some people like to like categorize and like really dissect what makes a genre, right? Which I think there's value in that because I find it really interesting. But for me, it's just like one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, but emo violence, like a lot of people use emo violence, screamo in the same sort of vein, right? Like, it's at this point, it just like, I think like the internet discourse in the last couple years has made it so silly that it just doesn't matter anymore, which I'm okay with because I don't care.
I remember getting into arguments with Paul, the old guy in the
Yeah.
years and years ago, and he's like, "What is it?
Screamo's not a genre."
Screamo's not a genre. It's just punk." And I'm like, "Yeah." And the older I get, the more I'm just kind of like, "It's punk."
Yeah,
Like it's
more emotionally charged punk. Yeah, like melancholy punk.
Melancholy punk. It's just punk.
Now what's your take on scrams? Because when I first heard, I didn't know because I was scrams, and then I saw all these bands. Orchids or scrams?
What scrams?
Yeah.
I think it was always a joke term, and then some people like got pretentious about it and was like, "It's not a joke term; it's a real genre." And then now it's a joke term again that nobody likes to use. Like it's so weird how that term has like gone through like a roller coaster of meaning.
That's how I feel about it. I feel because it was like there was a time when like I'll say back in like 2008 when I first really started like getting into going to shows and then talking to coworkers and them being like, "Oh, what are you into?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm into punk." And then it would be like, "Oh, so you like No Doubt?" And I'm like, "No."
Kinda. Hella Good is a good song.
Hella Good is a great song. I'm not knocking a No Doubt. But then it was kind of like, okay, well, no, like I like hardcore. And then it's like, okay, so you like Black Flag and Minor Threat. And I'm like, gosh, no, I like screamo. And then it was like, oh, so you like First to Last and like Zayo, and I'm like, God damn it. No, I like scrams.
It's niche, dang it.
It is the nichest of punk you can get.
Excuse me, yeah. It's always fun explaining to somebody who has no idea what you're talking about.
And then it's kind of like, it's almost like scrams is a response to being like, you're too embarrassed to use the term screamo. And now, again, it's like the older I get,
now it's like, switched. Now it's cringe to say scrams, and now everyone's saying screamo.
Well,
It's so weird.
yeah, it's more the advent of the internet has made it so like screamo is more the universally accepted term, and like whatever you can use screamo on the internet and people know you're not talking about like, you know, deathcore bands or the Warped Tour bands, so to speak. I don't know. Sorry.
I weird genres now. I heard slowcore the other day, and I was like, oh, like what is slowcore? Like, there's just so many people make up like these genres that just get so confused.
Yeah.
Fun talk about it all the time. We just like, and
It's fun.
Scrams is really cringeworthy to maybe age. I could be my age. I don't know, but
I think it started off being like cringy, and then people adopted it, and now it's kind of come full circle. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I said, like the older I get, the more I'm just kind of like, man, who cares? It's punk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I just say. Everything's hardcore and punk. And if they really want to ask me what, then I've heard a million times, you know, just regular people, if you're working with them, they're like, oh, yeah, I know Screamo. Tell me a few bands. And then you say it, and they're like, yeah, they don't know what band you say. And they're like,
Yeah.
so you don't know Screamo. So
I had one instance where that actually worked because there was a professor in my psychology department. He used to study music psychology. He was really into metal. And he knew I was, like, everyone in the psychology department knew I was in a band because it was the most exciting thing. Like, oh my gosh, like, you're not dedicating your life to school and being normal. Like, wow, that's so cool. But he was like, what kind of band do you play in? He was like kind of a cool dude. And I was like, it's like a screamy punk band. Yeah, but what kind of screamy punk? And I was like hardcore? Okay, cool. Like these bands, and he listed like obscure hardcore bands. I'm like, no. He's like, okay, Amy, tell me what the genre is. I probably know it. And I'm like, screamo? And he's like, oh, like Blood Brothers? I was like, kinda. I was like the closest somebody got to it. And I was like, sure. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I like that genre. I don't know why you were embarrassed by it. I'm like, I'm not. I just never have anybody who knows what it is.
now is I Hate Sex around your area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. Are they from Edmonton or close by?
Yeah, no, they're from
Edmonton. Yep.
Now, did you guys play with those with I Hate Sex a bunch, or?
Oh yeah, no, we played with them a lot. We shared a jam space with them for a couple of years before they broke up. I was at the first I Hate Sex show. Darrell, our drummer, has put on like a half dozen I Hate Sex shows. It was really funny because
The second show was with them.
Yeah, Amy's second show was their Japan tour kickoff show. And when they came back from Japan was when they blew up. And it was like, oh, our little screamo band is not so little anymore. So,
oh, that's
yeah, no, I know them fairly well. Like Nicole drove down to us to Calgary to see the Body and stuff. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. My dog's trying to get a bug. Hold on one second.
Oh, good to know the dog thing is kind of universal.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sees a bug and she just starts going wild. It's super annoying.
Yeah. Ours hates flies and will snap at them.
She literally will run all over the place. It doesn't matter. Balls, yeah, she's something else. But there's a little rat terrier. Don't get a rat terrier. We have
They have so much energy.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
And they eat everything. She'll try to eat coins. Doesn't matter. That's crazy. But sorry, it's a little sidebar. I always ask this too. Is there any bands that you could tell me that I should be listening to that maybe I'm not listening to in like the stuff?
Ooh, probably like False Body.
Yeah,
False Body's sick.
I'm going to throw out two bands from Edmonton that are Edmonton local and pretty popular here, but do not get enough love outside of here, and that is False Body, which is our friend Michelle fronts it, and it's kind of like I hate
Convergy hardcore.
I was gonna say I hate using it because it sounds like not the best, but like Converge worship is.
They probably would describe themselves that way.
Yeah. I mean, they have a giant Jago flag hanging in their living room. They love Converge. They're a fantastic band. They do not get enough love. And also the band Everything You Ever Loved. We play with them a lot. They're kind of like a post-hardcore doomy band. They used to be most of the members used to play in a hardcore band called Slumlord from here. And then Slumlord broke up and they started this band, and it's fantastic. It's very much like Amun Ra, Celeste, kind of like a very slow, heavy Celeste, like Neurosis, but like punk.
Say,
Um,
say this.
Aww, so
Fantastic.
cute.
So cute.
I love dogs. All good.
Yeah. She's crazy. All right, go find a book.
That is what our dog would be doing if she wasn't out like hanging out and running in the
Yeah.
sun all day and is exhausted now.
My other dog is just like lying nice. It's a Staffordshire Terrier, like a old type
Yes.
So cute.
So cute.
dogs ever. I think any other dog that I'll ever get going forward will be a Staffy because they're just so good. They're so good with my kids too. Well, Jack is. He's so good with my kids, and I don't think I'll ever get a different breed than a Staffy. They're just so good. He never gives me any trouble. He's so loving. He loves people. He doesn't bark at dogs. He doesn't bark at people. It's crazy. I don't know. I've never experienced a dog like that. So
10 years ago, I actually I moved to Vancouver and lived with the vocalist of the band Tempest, and he had like the sweetest Staffy. Her name was Dakota, and she was just a big sweetheart and just a suck. And like ever since then, I've been like love them. Like I will fight to the death for them.
I will fight for you.
definitely. Now the bands that you were talking about, do they all have band camps or are they on Spotify? Like, can you easily find them for people that?
Oh yeah, like I don't know if False Body's on Spotify.
I think that album that they wrote, they're like I think they're excited for their next one coming up. So I think they're recording their next album. That first one, all of them are like, not our best. I still think it's good, but if you want to watch their live videos on Scoped, like,
This is something
so
else.
good live.
Going right back full circle. Scoped Exposure YouTube page.
False Body.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Look up False Body. Look up Everything You Ever Loved. They're both fantastic bands.
Yeah,
That I think
everything you ever love has a Bandcamp, though.
Yeah,
They have lots.
they have
Yeah.
Spotify
Yeah.
and everything.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, because I know a lot of people watch this, and I've learned a lot of bands from asking this question too. That some things just like fall under the radar for me, and I love. That's the best feeling is when you don't hear something and then you put on a band that somebody gives you a suggestion to listen to, and then you listen to it and you're like, oh, where have I been? Why haven't I listened to this band? And that's the greatest feeling ever to be exposed.
Well, yeah, especially here. Like, if I like, I hate saying it like this, but if I can use my platform, to do one thing, it's to like bump up bands from Edmonton that may not like otherwise get heard of because they're from Edmonton and they're just like local bands. They don't really get a lot of play outside of Alberta. So like if I go to like shows in Toronto, we end up playing shows in Toronto, or maybe next year I hear we might be in Chicago. Maybe, who knows? Rumor has it. I'm gonna be on there wearing like local Edmonton band T-shirts during our sets and being like, "Hey, check out this band! Hey, check out this band, please!" So
Well,
And come to Edmonton, please. It's a long drive, but we'll take care of you.
yes, if any bands want to come to Edmonton, I will throw you a show in my basement. I will make sure it is well attended, and I will cook you breakfast in the morning.
And dinner.
go. That's perfect right there. Usually at the end, I do a rapid fire question with everyone that I talk to. You probably saw me and Chris doing a little rapid fire at the end. It's just something I always do. So just to start off, I always ask favorite all-time New England punk or hardcore band for you. Which is hard because you're from Edmonton, and I mean there's a lot of states in New England. It's Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts. Orchid is in there. Ampere is in there.
I was going to say
I will say
Ampere.
Ampere. Yeah, I was like, I do not know my American geography.
Controversial opinion. I think Ampere is a much better band than Orchid.
I agree. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. What was the first punk or hardcore show you attended? Like a real one that was like, not like a Battle of the Bands type of thing.
I can't remember which was first. It was either Alexis on Fire with a bunch of local bands, or it was the Converge Curse show.
Mm.
Yeah, I was reflecting. I have two ones, but I don't know if the first one really counts because I was thinking about the Trash Talk, what's that band? Retox, Trash Talk Retox Dillinger show that happened here. But I remember that I saw Gallows the year before, and does that band count? I don't know. They played to like 5 people. Like they like toured from England and they played to 5 people at the pawn shop.
Classic.
Been there? Yeah, so
that counts. That definitely counts.
it was fun.
My next question: all-time favorite punk hardcore show you played, like live?
Ooh,
Played.
that's a hard one.
I would say playing a backyard show with Detroit in LA in South Central. Have you ever been to LA?
I have, but not like I haven't gotten any shows or anything like that. Just kind of like went kind of out there.
Okay, I will say that as a suburban kid from Edmonton, going and playing in South Central LA was both super cool and also very horrifying. We there was like 700 people in this backyard. There were people jumping off the house, jumping off the garage. It was awesome. These 2 massive guys who owned the house walked up to us at the end of the night and gave us $20. And I went, "Thank you so much. This is fantastic.
Wow.
Goodbye."
Don't shoot me.
Yeah.
My favorite show, probably, you know what? Like, New Friends doesn't count because how could that not be your favorite? But like, I think playing that Calgary show was so fun because people were moshing pretty hard, and I was like, yes, because like as like a screamo band, you don't really get mosh, and I love watching people mosh. It was fun.
Yeah. I only had gone to one show in California. There's a place, Davis, California, where I saw a band called Unless and Pink Razors. I don't know if you've heard any of those bands, but I saw that a long time ago, but the only show. And I saw a show in Arizona, Overcome, which was like a Christian metalcore band, if you've ever heard them. They're like really, really crushing if you take a deep dive. This is like late 90s, so but that's as far West Coast shows that I've been to, other than vacationing and stuff like that. So that's awesome. My next question: all-time favorite punk hardcore show you attended that you didn't play, that you went and you saw a band and it meant something, the most special show for you that you attended?
I'm going to say when I went to Chaos and Chaos in 2013 and I saw Hoax, Left for Dead, Hatred Surge, was it Final Conflict? Maybe Final Conflict was on that too, and Infest. And I always say, because like, power violence, it's always like you play it in a house to 20 people or you play it in a hall to like 20 people. That was the first time I've ever been to a power violence concert versus a power violence show. I remember at one point, like, they played like the main riff to My World, My Way for like 12 minutes, and Joe Dinazio walked up with like t-shirts, like rolled up t-shirts, and just started tossing them into the crowd.
That's
and I was like,
fun.
it is a concert. I'm at a concert right now.
Which show is it that you went on there where you were on a bridge and people were jumping off into like
actually,
the river?
Yes. Never mind. I'm changing my answer. Seeing No Static play Chaos and Chaos on the pedestrian bridge at 2 in the morning. I cannot stress this enough. It was like 1,000 people on a bridge over the river in the middle of Austin at 1 a.m, and people were like crowd surfing off like over the crowd into the river. It was wild. And then the cops showed up right
Yeah.
after, and everybody vacated very quick.
And then when we went to Austin, it was like, don't swim in the river, you're going to get E. coli. And I thought of all those people who fell into the river.
Now, did anybody videotape that? Is there?
Oh, yeah.
You're in that video.
I'm in that video. You can see that video.
He's looking so happy. He's like, yeah, it's so good.
I'm so happy.
Hardcore show that meant a lot to me. I don't, trying to think. That's a tough one.
It's rapid fire.
I know, I'm sorry.
Like,
You're just like, come on.
like
Come on.
Your favorite one.
My favorite one. I think going to City of Caterpillar on New Friends Fest was probably one of my favorite ones, just because everyone was so freaking happy and having a good time, and everyone was like screaming the lyrics, and it was just such a good time, and people were just like hugging each other, and it was just like so wholesome. I think that was probably one of my favorite, probably one of the most wholesome like show moments I've ever been part of, because everyone kind of knew each other, and it was like, yeah, day 2, everyone's just stoked. Yeah. And Majority Rule too. That was fucking sick too.
Yeah. We played that. We can't get
I know, we played that show. Yeah, you're right.
I know. I got lucky because those bands played a lot up here in
Of course. Yeah.
City of Caterpillar. A bunch of times up in Boston and stuff like that. And Majority Rule, they played Connecticut a bunch of times. I would drive 3 hours down just to see them, and then drive home and go to sleep at 3 o'clock, and then get up at 6 to go to work, because like, I missed this show. I'm gonna drive down to Connecticut, see the show.
Worth it.
Yeah.
I really have to stress that, like, because Edmonton does not get like touring screamo bands up until like this New Friends Fest, the only like I want to say like the legendary screamo bands or the big screamo bands, the only one I had ever seen was when I flew to Chicago to see Envy in like 2010. Like, so going to New Friends and seeing like a lot of like not only contemporary bands but like some legendary bands too was like, oh, this is incredible.
Yeah.
This is like seeing Aerosmith in the 70s.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Whereas like for the East Coast people, they're like, this is just my like weekend, and you're like, oh, but with more friends.
I saw there's a video out there of Page 99 doing one of their reunion shows, and I noticed in the audience one of my friends just kind of standing off to the side looking bored as hell.
Because we've probably seen them so many times.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I videotaped a show that Page 99 played up in Manchester, New Hampshire, and it was like this weird place that you had to go downstairs, and the capacity was well over what it was supposed to be.
Yes.
The kid that set up the show was the drummer from Transistor. And
sick.
That's dope.
So nervous, and then knocked on the door, and he's like, "Everybody, be quiet!" And there's like 405 kids downstairs. We're like, like, how are we gonna make all these kids quiet? And it ended up being an amazing show, and just worked out great. And I'm just lucky that I got to see a few of the great bands here and there. I tried to see as much as I could. I was a huge 400 Years guy. Never got to see them. I'm also huge on Race Bannon. I love Race Bannon so much. I never got to see them either. So, there's a few bands that I just never got to see that, I'm kicking myself in the ass for not going. Sometimes you miss them or you hear about them late, and I just missed my opportunity. But those are two of the bigger bands that I love that I never got to see. So I digress. I'll keep going. My next question. I'm a big movie guy. I watch movies all the time, whether it be, I tried to watch 300 plus movies in 1 year. All new movies, couldn't do it. Didn't even come close. Tried for 3 years, and I got to 200 new movies in 1 year, which is a feat in itself for me.
I was gonna say, that's impressive.
So what was the last movie you watched?
Okay. We jammed on Friday, and after jam, we went upstairs and watched Lady Hawk.
Nice.
Yeah, and the reason why is because I was talking about this movie. So Cory was camping last weekend, so me and Darrell and his partner, we were all hanging out by the fire, and I was describing the premise of this movie, and both of them hadn't seen it, and they love Darrell's a huge movie nerd too. So if you ever want to chat with him about movies, fantastic person. But like him and Lisa are both kind of movie buffs, and yeah, they're like they love cheesy movies too. Like they don't discriminate. So they're like, this sounds like the most epic, cheesy, terrible movie. I want to watch it. And sure enough, they were entertained. So I'm glad. But yeah, that was their last movie.
I think the last movie I watched was Arch Enemy. I don't know if you heard that. It's
No.
producers from Mandy and The Color of Space.
Oh, cool.
It sounds great. It was horrible. Joe, what was the guy that played Deathstroke in the Justice League movie? He kind of played Deathstroke at the very end.
Oh, Joe Menaggio.
Yeah. He's the main character. It's really bad. I was so up to see it, and then I watched it, and I was like, oh god, that was so bad.
Not even like so bad it's good, just bad.
Just bad.
It was just really, really bad.
Bummer.
They throw a little animation in it too, and then they go back to live action stuff. Just the story was bad, and the acting was really, really bad. So if you see Arch Enemy, steer clear of it because it's not good. Definitely not good.
Will do.
Huh?
Will do.
Yes. I'm always watching horror movies as well, so I always put this out here. Favorite all-time horror movie for you guys?
The Thing.
The Thing.
Now, did you like?
Yeah.
Now, did you like the second thing that they did?
No. It's like I wanted to like it so bad, but I just couldn't. And especially finding out they did all the practical effects originally and then changed it all to CGI just like breaks my heart.
Yeah, I like that movie as a self-contained movie. I think that adds to the mystery and to the horror, I guess. Well, I don't find it scary. It's just body horror, right? To me, it's just more body horror and gross. Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that movie.
Plus, I'm a huge Kurt Russell fan too, as well. So
Me too. I love him.
shit, I love Overboard, and that's like as corny as
That's such a cheesy movie too.
but he's so good at it. So
yeah, is that the one where he's wearing the eye patch?
No, that's Captain Ron.
Right. So good.
I'm also I collected comic books for a long, long time, and I always throw this out. Some people don't watch superhero movies, some people do, or read comics. I always ask DC or Marvel for you guys.
I'm Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel.
I grew up like on the X-Men comics, like from the late 70s to the early 80s or early 90s, I should say, runs. My uncle had a ton of old 70s X-Men comics, so I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the first X-Men movie came out in 2000, I remember making a big deal about going to see it. Retrospectively, I'm like, it wasn't that good, but.
Now,
The first X-Men movie is a great 2000s time capsule, though.
Right.
Now, did you like New Mutants when that came out?
I actually didn't see it.
I was thinking it was horrible. It got bad reviews and stuff like that. Sat down and watched it, and I really enjoyed it. It had a little horror aspect to it. It was a lot different from a typical X-Men movie, and that's kind of why I enjoyed it, because it's not the run-of-the-mill X-Men movie. It kind of, it really delves into a little horror, like not crazy, but if you've never seen it, give it a shot.
No, absolutely, because that's what I like. I like the movies that are a little bit more off the cusp. Like I really liked Logan just for being like not that like cheesy classic kind of superhero movie
Western.
Vibe. Yeah. So I'd love to check out Minions.
Yeah, I'm a DC guy. I like DC just because it's a little darker, like street level, like hero villains. That's just me. I love Marvel too. I mean, shit, I have Captain America tattooed right here on my chest. I have
Nice.
Daredevil over here, and I have Iron Man right here. But I also have, Catwoman's here, and Wonder Woman's here. I have
That's dope.
I have
Yeah.
King and Batman on my sides right here. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of I like both actually, but DC more for me.
That said, if it came down to like the X-Men animated series from the 90s versus the Batman animated series from the 90s, I would have to
Batman.
go Batman, yeah.
Yeah, that animated series and like the first animated movies, like Mask of the Phantasm, so good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. I don't know if you've ever seen this cartoon, Young Justice. It's kind of a DC thing where it's like the young version of the Justice League, but Justice League is.
Oh,
It's really, really good. I think it's one of the best animated cartoons there is. And if you ever run across that, give it a try. It was 3 seasons. It took a while to get to the third season because they canceled it. Cartoon Network first put it on, and they canceled it. And then DC, when they had their pay channel, picked up the third because fans were like ripping on Cartoon Network for canceling it because it was more adult, or like catered towards adults more. It was pretty violent, and it just seemed like it was catered towards adults, and people were so pissed about it. And if you ever run across it, give it a try. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
I thought it was really good, really good.
cool.
My next question. I'm a big hip hop guy too. On my Instagram, I've recorded a billion hip hop shows. I'm more of a '90s boom bap guy. I don't really like trap music that much. Probably
Fair.
age. But if you've been listening to hip hop, what have you been listening to, whether it be old stuff or new stuff?
I mean, the classic for me, like one of my all-time favorite hip hop albums is MF Doom's In Food. So
Food is so
I mean,
good. Yeah.
yeah. Like I listen to a lot of newer stuff too, like Kendrick Lamar and
Hmm.
Childish Gambino, but I think I always go back to that classic.
That one's always on repeat for
That
me.
or of newer stuff, probably Run the Jewels too
Mm.
would probably be up there as well.
The new Backwash album is sick. It's super sick. It like blends noise and like even like some hardcore parts to it with like rap and like screaming. It's so like such a masterful blend of genre that I just like, yeah. And there's like trap beats in it, but it's like the way that there's production and like other stuff on top of that, it's not like, your typical
Mm.
cheesy trap music, right? It's really heavy and really intense. And it just came out yesterday and it's so good. It's probably like, yeah, that's going to be on repeat for a while. Super, super sick. But
Now,
yeah, like MF Doom, always a favorite. MF Doom, so good. Rest
yeah.
in peace.
Now, did you listen to MF Doom when he was Zev Love X on KMD? He used to be named something different when he was in a band called KMD, and his
Oh,
voice is a little different back then, but still the lyrical content is amazing. So if you
that's dope.
like do a little digging on Google or whatever, Google KMD, and listen to that music because he rips it on that stuff too. I love MF Doom, and I loved KMD too, and his name was Zev Love X in that band.
Cool. No, I'll check that out.
Yeah, that sounds sick. Yeah,
I can send you a link, after
please.
you guys can listen to it. It's really like that '90s boom bap feel though, but
Yes.
it's
That's a good vibe though. It's very nostalgic, for me anyways.
all my favorite rappers are passing away, unfortunately. So, it's been a crazy year so far for, especially in that musical. Shock G from Digital Underground just had passed away. I mean, MF Doom, and then back before that, like Fife from A Tribe Called Quest was really tough for me. Prodigy from Mobb Deep was really hit me hard too. It's just very, very sad to see all my heroes of hip hop like passing away. So
Yeah.
definitely, it's sad, but I'll keep going. My last question. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you guys are, you have work tomorrow or feed the dog or whatever. Like, that's why I'm so like thankful for you guys to take time out and talk to me. 50 talks has been great. I've had so many great special guests, and when you guys agreed to do my 50th discussion, it just it just makes my heart feel good, and I'm glad that you did it. Definitely.
No, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, honored to be 50th.
I'm planning on doing 100, and then if I get inspired, maybe I'll do 50 more. But I try to mix it up. I try to get younger bands. I try to get the old classic guys. I try to get the metalcore guys. I try to get all the music that I like in the heavier vein of stuff. I try to incorporate, a mix of all kinds of different stuff. So
hold that thought for 1 second. The phone is about to die.
Yeah, my phone's about to die.
Right,
yeah. Just at the end too.
Of course.
I only had one more question left.
You only have one more question left. We can do it quick. It's like, no, we need to have full power.
And usually in a week, so I'll send.
Sorry?
Oh, I put after.
Okay, we're good. We got full power.
Yeah, I know
yeah.
if I didn't do that, it would die like right
when we're about to answer. Yeah.
I usually put these up on YouTube as well within the next few days. So anybody that wanted to watch it on your end or my end, they can just go to YouTube and search Hal Capone, and all my discussions there, and a few of the things that I've recorded live too is up there as well. So anybody that missed this, So my last question is, favorite song to play live for you guys? Like, what song is your favorite to play live?
From Obroa-Skai or from Rayleigh? Or from Eddie?
Both, actually, both.
My favorite song from Rayleigh would have been... Uh-oh.
We don't know the names of any of the songs.
I was going to say, I don't know the names of
Which one?
It was like Quiet.
Oh, that one is called Tar Horoscope.
Tar Horoscope.
Yeah.
And my favorite song from Obroa-Skai would be pretty much the entirety of our split with Isidro.
Yeah, that was sick.
Because that's like one track. Like we play that as one track when we play it live. So
yeah, I like Watchtower, which is Alexis on Fire.
When we were in Rayleigh, we just named like working titles of songs off of what they kind of sound like.
We did the typical like new 1, new 2, new 3 kind of thing.
And it was like, oh, this one sounds like Lafayette.
Actually, that's a lie. I think my favorite. We only performed it once. The Diamondback one on the 4 split. We only played that one, or the 4 EP. I was really proud of my lyrics in that one. But in terms of Obroa-Skai, yeah, Holocene Extinction is my favorite to play. And we always play that at the end of the jams. Like, even if we're working on new stuff, like we're always like, let's play this song because it's like a really satisfying song to play live. So
yeah, it's funny though, because now that we're like all the new songs we've written, it's kind of like, oh, this would be my favorite if we were playing it live. Like this would be my favorite.
Once we get some songs written, they'll be definitely our favorite.
Yeah, I was the same way. When I was in a couple bands, for 10, 13 years. I think it was in like 3 or 4 bands, and I can't remember one name of any song. Everything. All right, play track 8. We're gonna do 8. All right. Now we're gonna do 11. So even now, after all that time has passed, I still couldn't tell you one single name, even though it's on. Like I can't remember one name, so I totally get that, because that's how it was for me too.
Yeah. You're glad to know it's universal.
Yeah.
Because when I ask that question, like a lot of people just like take a second and like, we don't really know like the name.
New LP6.
New one.
Yeah.
C tuning.
Yeah.
You guys working on anything else, like other bands, or is it just Obroa-Skai that you guys are working on?
Actually, Amy just started learning to play drums, and we're doing a sludge band. So Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be.
I've
That's gonna
been
be fun.
learning. It's been a month, and I can kind of do a blast
Yeah,
beat, and I
I'm
can
very
kind of
impressed.
do a D beat. So yeah, so maybe one day that will be a thing.
Now, it's not a full band, or is it just like
Just
kind of
us two.
That's us.
you
We've
two?
always wanted to do a two-piece, so and we've always wanted to do like a two-piece, like sludge, electronic, like heavy body jam, but heavier. Like we're always like, what if the body but heavier and sludgier? That's like with every band we're in now. What if this band was heavier?
Yeah, essentially.
Now, will it be drum and bass or guitar? I mean, drum and bass or drum and guitar?
It's gonna be drum and guitar, but I'm already planning out like running my guitar through octave pedals and like bass amps. So we'll see how it works out. It may be super underwhelming when it all gets said and done. So
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great.
that'll be fun.
yeah,
Well,
Hmm.
I want to thank you guys again so much for taking time to do this. I appreciate it, and anything I can do if you guys come this way in New England. I used to set up shows back in the day in Massachusetts a lot. I did a few shows in New Hampshire as well. So if you ever need any help, um, whether I have a basement in my house, nice, plenty of room. It's unfurnished. It's perfect for shows. If you guys need any help, just get in touch with me, or I'll get in touch with somebody that can help you guys in New Hampshire or like Massachusetts. I'm pretty good friends with Justin from New Forms, and
Dope.
we're trying to work on some sort of like maybe mini fest or something in the next year.
Yeah.
Definitely
no,
stay with me, and if you guys need any help, please reach out, and I'll do my best to help you guys out to play up here in New England.
absolutely. That'd be great. Like I've always wanted to play a bunch of shows on the East Coast, and
Oh yeah.
like we talked to the people in like Massanera a lot,
Mm.
and talk about like playing Jersey and that. And it would just be so fun. So hopefully, like maybe not this year because everything's still kind of,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
definitely not this year.
maybe like next year,
2022.
hopefully.
Yeah. And don't come to New England in the wintertime. I don't have to tell you guys.
I will turn back around and say my offer about putting on house shows for any bands listening here. Don't come
in
here
the
in winter.
Yeah.
You have to drive through the mountains. It is horrifying. Don't do it.
Yeah, there was like a point where somebody was like, "Oh, we're planning like foxtails and senza," and they're like, "Yeah, it'll be in November," and I was like, "Oh, cool," and then I was like,
They have to
"No."
drive through the mountains to get here. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Ron says he's got you guys in Pittsburgh too. So
Dope.
East Coast connection right there. Pittsburgh,
Awesome.
it's New Hampshire. We got you locked down here.
It's
So
not in winter.
Just not winter.
want to come in the wintertime, definitely. Pittsburgh not so bad, but is you go further north, it's not good.
It's humid and cold.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's bad.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great night. I'll throw this
Yeah.
on YouTube in maybe 3 or 4 days, and I'll send you the link. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Super fun. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
Awesome. Bye,
All right.
guys.
Bye. Boop.